cloud with rain, she had nothing but a worn-out coat, a swollen belly, and the last stale sandwich in her bag. Most walked past her like she didn't exist. But when she shared her only food with a stranger no one would even look at, she changed both of their destinies forever. Because what she didn't know was that the man she fed was not who he appeared to be, and what followed was a story filled with kindness, betrayal, humor, and a twist that turned despair into legacy. Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond. Subscribe now for real, emotional stories where the quietest acts of kindness echo the loudest. Your subscription helps us share more life-changing journeys every week. The wind was sharp that afternoon, slicing through Lena Harper's coat as she sat alone on the bus stop bench outside St. Mallory's Hospital. Her duffel bag sat at her feet, damp from the previous night's drizzle. Her shoes had holes in the soles. Her fingers, purple with cold, gently rested on her rounded belly. 8 months pregnant. Homeless. And invisible. 2 weeks ago, her fiancé had slammed the door in her face when she refused to get rid of the problem. Her parents called her a disgrace. Her friends ghosted her one by one. She had run out of couches to crash on. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Inside her bag was a slightly squashed egg salad sandwich. The smell wasn't ideal, but it was all she had. She unwrapped it slowly, half thinking about saving half for later, until she noticed the figure across the street. He sat against a graffiti-covered brick wall. A man. Mid-40s maybe. Filthy coat. Torn gloves. Bare feet. He looked like someone who had been walking for days. But it was his eyes that froze her open, unfocused, as if he hadn't blinked in hours. People passed by, avoiding him like a shadow they didn't want to acknowledge. Lena looked down at her sandwich. Then back at the man. And without hesitating, she stood. Crossing the street slowly, wobbling slightly under the weight of her baby bump, she reached him. "Hey," she said gently. "You eaten today?" He didn't answer right away. When he looked up, his voice cracked. "Can't remember." "I've got this," she said, holding out the sandwich. "It's not fancy, but..." He blinked. "You sure?" "I'm pregnant, not selfish." She smiled. He took the sandwich but paused. Then, in a gesture that caught her off guard, he tore it in half. "You eat first," he said. She laughed a real laugh. "I gave it to you." He shrugged and handed her the smaller half anyway. "Then it's a meal shared." They sat there in silence for a few minutes. Lena on the curb, the man leaning against the wall. "What's your name?" she asked. "Tom." "Lena." "You're too kind, Lena," he said after a while. "Most folks wouldn't have even looked at me." She nodded slowly. "Yeah. I've felt that lately." He studied her face. "You smile like everything's okay, but your eyes don't lie." She glanced down. "Life's been complicated." Tom nodded as if he understood more than he let on. "You deserve better." "So do you." He looked at her again. "You don't know me." "I don't need to." She stood, brushing her coat off. "You were hungry." "I had food." "That's enough." Tom said nothing as she turned and walked back toward the bus stop. But after a few steps, Lena glanced over her shoulder. Tom was gone. Vanished. No footsteps. No direction. Just gone. She shivered, confused, and sat back down, cradling her belly. "That was weird," she murmured. "But okay." She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She had no idea that the sandwich she just gave away would become the most important act of her life. And that Tom wasn't homeless at all. The sun had long dipped below the skyline by the time Lena found shelter beneath the side entrance awning of an abandoned shopfront near Holloway Street. The wind whistled through the cracks in the broken windows above her, and every time a car passed, she tensed, unsure whether it would bring help, harassment, or just more ice pretending not to see her. She leaned against the bricks and curled into herself, wrapping her coat tight around her belly. The half sandwich Tom had insisted she take sat uneaten in her pocket. She kept it there like a reminder someone had shared with her when he had even less. And that mattered. Her eyes fluttered shut as exhaustion pulled at her bones. But the rest didn't last long. Two shadows approached. At first, their voices were just background noise until they stopped directly in front of her. Well, said a voice that dripped with mockery. What do we have here? Lena looked up to see two men, one tall, with a red hoodie pulled over a greasy face, and the other shorter with a cigarette tucked behind his ear and a tire iron in hand. I'm just resting. Please, she said, her voice calm but trembling. Yeah? This is private property, sweetheart, the tall one smirked. You trespassing. I'll move. Just give me a minute. She struggled to her feet, holding her belly protectively. Nah, I think we want to hear what's in the bag first, said the one with the cigarette, stepping forward. Fear surged in Lena's chest. She gripped the strap of her duffel bag and backed up into the wall. Suddenly, a voice cut through the dark. I suggest you take your hands off that bag and step away. The two men turned sharply. A figure emerged from the alley's end. This time, not hunched. Not ragged. The man stood tall, coat clean, eyes steady and fierce. Lena's eyes widened. Tom? The men scoffed. Who's this? Prince Charming, one joked. But Tom didn't flinch. He pulled a leather wallet from his coat, flipped it open. A gold badge gleamed in the faint light. Thomas Calder. Private security investigator. You're both trespassing on monitored property and threatening a civilian. Care to test me? The tire iron hit the ground with a clank. The men mumbled curses and backed away, disappearing around the corner without looking back. Lena stared, speechless. Tom walked over, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. You all right? What? What was that? She asked, struggling to make sense of it all. I go undercover sometimes, he said softly. To find people who've been ignored. I test outreach programs, charities, shelters, see who's real. And today, you were real. She shook her head, almost laughing. So you're not homeless? Not this time, he replied with a half smile. But you treated me with more dignity than people do when I wear a suit. But why? Because I needed to see if anyone still remembers what it means to care. And I passed your test, she asked. He looked at her with a softness that cut straight through her defenses. You passed something much bigger. You reminded me why I started all this in the first place. She blinked back tears. Come with me, he said. Just for tonight. I've got a place. Warm food. Blankets. Somewhere safe. Lena hesitated, but something in Tom's tone made her believe him. She nodded. Okay. He helped her into the back seat of a black SUV parked nearby, leather seats, heated interiors, a faint smell of cinnamon. As the city lights faded behind them, Lena couldn't stop thinking about how everything had shifted. All because of one sandwich. And one stranger who had turned out to be anything but ordinary. The townhouse didn't look like a shelter. It was nestled between two old buildings on a quiet street lined with leafless trees. The porch light glowed softly, and flower boxes, even in winter, lined the windows with evergreens and dried lavender. The brass number plate on the gate read, 12 Grace Row. Lena stepped out of the SUV slowly, eyes scanning the facade, still expecting this to be a dream or some kind of elaborate mistake. Is this yours? She asked quietly. Tom chuckled. It's everyone's. You'll see. He led her up the steps and knocked twice. The door swung open immediately, and a kind-faced woman in her 50s greeted them with a warm smile and open arms. You must be Lena. Come in, sweetheart. Inside, the air smelled like fresh-baked bread and clean linen. The walls were covered in paintings and Polaroids. Laughter echoed from the back where children's voices played a soft background chorus. This wasn't a shelter. It was a home. The woman led Lena to a cozy bedroom with soft lighting, a rocking chair, and a cot already set up beside the bed. On the dresser sat a welcome basket filled with prenatal vitamins, warm socks, lotion, and a small, hand-knit baby blanket. "Who did all this?" Lena asked, her voice catching in her throat. Tom leaned against the doorway. "We did. For you." "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why me?" "Because when you had nothing, you gave," Tom replied. "We have a habit of helping people like that." In the days that followed, Lena experienced something she hadn't felt in months: rest. No one questioned her past. No one judged her swollen belly. Instead, they welcomed her like family. She met other women there too: Rosa, a teenage runaway whose baby was due in 3 weeks, Janine, a former teacher who left an abusive marriage, Clara, who worked night shifts as a cleaner but came every morning to help make breakfast for the house. There was laughter around the breakfast table, even pranks. Once someone replaced all the sugar with salt just to see Janine's face. Lena laughed harder than she had in years. It was the first time she felt like she belonged, not as a burden, but as a person. And then one morning, Tom called her into the library. On the desk was a folder with her name on it. "What's this?" she asked cautiously. "An opportunity," he said. "One of the businesses we fund, an interior design firm, is hiring an apprentice. I might have passed along your sketches." "You looked through my notebook," she gasped, half embarrassed. "They were good, Lena. Really good." She opened the folder. It was a job offer. Her eyes welled up. "You barely know me." Tom smiled. "I know enough. You've survived storms most people never face, and you still chose kindness. That's the kind of person I'd hire 10 times over." She sat down slowly, absorbing it all. "I thought I was forgotten," she murmured. "Thrown away." Tom crouched beside her, voice low but steady. "You were never forgotten. You were just waiting to be found by the right people." For the first time in a long time, Lena believed that. And for the first time in her life, she said yes to a future she could finally see. The delivery came sooner than expected, 2 weeks ahead of her due date. Lena had just started her second day of apprenticeship when her water broke while reviewing fabric swatches. It was Clara who called the ambulance. It was Tom who arrived at the hospital before anyone else, breathless and still wearing his conference badge. The labor was long, painful, and emotional. But at 3:41 a.m., as the city outside still slept under a curtain of fog, Lena held her baby girl for the first time. Tiny. Wrinkled. Perfect. She wept, not just from the overwhelming weight of love, but from the truth that she had made it. They had both made it. Tom waited outside the recovery room, pacing the corridor, running a hand through his hair. Nurses and orderlies passed by, offering smiles. He nodded politely, but his eyes remained fixed on the door. Finally, it opened. Lena, pale and radiant, smiled at him. "She's here. Would you like to meet her?" Tom stepped in slowly, not wanting to intrude. But when he saw the baby swaddled in a lavender blanket, the breath left his lungs. "I was going to name her Hope," Lena said softly, "but now I'm thinking Grace." Tom looked at her, eyes stinging. "Grace," he whispered. "That's beautiful." She nodded. "Because that's what I've been given." Over the next few days, Lena's room turned into a garden of flowers. Cards, gifts, and knitted baby clothes poured in from every woman at the house. Rosa painted a tiny portrait of the baby. Janine wrote a poem. Even Graham, Tom's silent business partner, sent a silver rattle engraved with the initials GH. Tom came every morning to check on them. Sometimes he brought coffee. Sometimes news. Sometimes nothing but a quiet smile that stayed a little longer each day. On the 5th morning, Lena caught him lingering by the window. "You okay?" she asked. He turned. "Just thinking. About how I went looking for broken systems, and instead, found someone who rebuilt something in me." She smiled, holding her daughter close.
Funny. I was thinking the same.
Tom sat beside her, voice quieter now.
There's something else. We're opening a new shelter in the North Borough. I want to name it after someone.
Who?
He looked at her. You. Lena blinked, caught off guard.
Not just because you were kind, Tom continued, but because you were the catalyst.
You reminded me that it's not enough to hand out help. We have to share dignity.
She looked down at Grace, then back up.
Only if I get to help run it. Tom laughed. That's exactly the answer I hoped for.
Weeks later, the ribbon cutting was simple but heartfelt.
The new building read,
"The Lena Grace House, a safe beginning for every mother." Lena stood at the podium with Grace on her hip, surrounded by women who once stood where she had. Her voice was steady, full of fire.
I was told I had nothing to offer. That I had failed. That my choices made me disposable. But all of that was wrong. Being rejected was not the end of me. It was the beginning. The crowd stood. Some cried. Some clapped.
One woman held her newborn and mouthed thank you. And behind them all, Tom stood in the back, silent, hands in his pockets, smiling with a quiet pride. As the event ended, Lena walked up beside him. "You still testing people?" she asked playfully. He grinned. "No need. I already found the best story." They stood together in the golden hour light, two souls changed not by power or luck, but by a single act of kindness that neither of them could have predicted. Storytelling and beyond. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories where hope rises from the unlikeliest places.